Thank you. It is 6:30 p.m. on April 6th, calling the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Board to order. We are currently missing Commissioner Walshaw. Hopefully he joins us soon. We'll give him another minute or two to join. Did you hear anything? I didn't hear anything from Jack.
No, I actually tried to call him a half an hour ago because I had another issue and
Okay.
he didn't answer. So
All right. We'll give him another minute or so and then we'll get rolling and go from there. All right, I think we'll just start because we do have a full agenda. So just to get through and hopefully get out of here in a reasonable hour. So go with that. Chair remarks first. So as I said, we have a full agenda this evening. So I'm going to try to keep this short and keep the meeting moving along so we can get through everything in a reasonable amount of time. Weather, geopolitical forces, and other conditions continue to create volatility in our energy markets. And we have commissioners have the challenging job of balancing our responsibilities of keeping the lights on, homes and businesses warm and cool, rate stability, and environmental stewardship. I wanted to point out an interesting fact that happened on this Sunday around 1 p.m. that IS New England had a mostly zero carbon resource mix on the grid at that time. Between the full sunshine, the lower temperatures, which, as we all know, the solar panels love, the steady wind, coupled with our hydro and nuclear resources, the grid was able to achieve this benchmark. While this is a great benchmark, there are continuing challenges in managing the peak and off-peak loads and striking the correct balance of all of these resources. Wanted to give another thanks for another great program, A Shade Above, which is Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Tree Initiative, where we will be providing 50 customers with utility-friendly trees free of charge. I simply just need to sign up with the utility for that. And also want to thank Pete and the team for taking some feedback that we received around possibly swapping out some of the offered trees with more native New England trees that are utility friendly. Any other commissioner reports at this time?
I do. Got a couple here. I attended a couple of subcommittee meetings. I attended 4 union contract negotiating meetings held at the North Ave headquarters, and I'll be attending another tomorrow. I see it's on the agenda, so I won't comment further there. Also attended 2 in-person meetings regarding the general manager's goal evaluations and the setting of the 22 goals. I want to thank Peter Dion for the good job of providing the updates as we went along in 2021 and the midterm evaluation. That really shortened our workload. And I want to thank Jen for her wonderful work being the scribe, putting the 2022 goals together. I also attended the Sustainable Wakefield meeting. I see that's on the agenda, so I'll hold for that. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Phil. Any other commissioners?
Yes, quick update on the Green Communities Energy Reduction Plan and the application to the program. There'll be some upcoming public meetings on the Energy Reduction Plan scheduled in May. So we'll be presenting before the school committee on May 3rd. We'll be presenting before the town council on May 9th. And we'll be presenting again before the school committee. We'll be back at the school committee. So they require 2 weeks to consider anything before voting. So we'll be back to them on the 24th of May, looking for a vote and final approval for submission. I am happy to present at the next meeting, if desired, to this body, and I'll have a draft presentation certainly by then. So if anyone is interested, you can just let me know, and we can talk about how to make that happen.
Great. Thank you, Jen. Elton, any? Good.
I'm good, Tom. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Town councilor liaison is not present. Before I open up to public comments, I just want to, I see we have a few members of the public. I just wanted to give a reminder, if you would like to speak during public comment, please raise your hand. I'll recognize you. Please remember to state your full name and address. And since we do have a full agenda this evening, I do ask that you keep your comments to 3 to 5 minutes. Also, historically, we have allowed public participation during sections at the discretion of the chair, which is myself. If you would like to be recognized, please raise your hand, and if appropriate, I will call upon you. If you haven't already stated your name and address before, please do so. All right. So opening up public comments, I see Melissa out there. You can come off of mute. Oh, you're on mute, Melissa.
All right. Melissa Houston, 3 Fairmount Avenue. I wanted to just tell the board that I wanted to make a request that the commissioners vote to sell or transfer their shares of the project 2015A. Many of you attended our Sustainable Wakefield presentation that went over the various reasons that we believe the municipal light board should take a vote on this. And I believe that it just doesn't make economic or environmental sense at this time for Wakefield to invest in a new natural gas plant.
All right. Thank you. Any other public comments? Kathleen?
Kathleen Scharf, 69 Pleasant Street, Wakefield. I just want to support Melissa's statement. In my view, the Peabody Peaker plant is a 10-year-old idea that was probably made sense when the whole structure of alternative sources of energy was quite different in terms of availability and cost. To me, it just doesn't make any sense anymore. And I also agree with the request that the current commissioners, most of whom were not on the board at the time, take a vote so that we know what people's positions are on this. And that's it. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Any other public comment before? Oh, Julie?
Thanks. Julie Smith-Galvin here as a private citizen, 28 Grafton Street. And I know I've spoken on this Peabody Peaker plant quite a lot, and I do thank the Wakefield Municipal Gas for always being willing to talk about it. You know that I sent a letter back in October of 2020 asking for serious consideration to reassess this project. And since that time, we've seen capacity prices go down. We've seen IPCC warnings become more dire. We've seen our own Board of Health ask for the state to do a comprehensive health assessment of this power plant. And we've seen the cost of renewables and alternatives come down and the availability go up. And so what we're asking today, and I support the previous speakers, is simply that you take a vote to exit under your power purchase agreement this contract, which I realize requires putting it on the market for others to buy. And so while that may not seem as significant because other people perhaps would buy it, though I would question whether in this market anybody would. I think what's really important, the vote that you would take today, if you decide to do so, is that you will signal to ratepayers and to policymakers and to Wakefield residents that Wakefield is aware of the environmental and the economic and the health consequences of this plant, and the risks that it poses for everyone. And so I know it's not an easy vote, but I think it's a highly, highly symbolic one for the way we want Wakefield to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Any other public comment? Okay. Closing the public comment section. All right. Moving on to the approval of the March 2nd, 2022 minutes. Were there any amendments that did not make it to Pete prior to the book being published that we want to incorporate at this time?
None here.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to accept the March 2nd, 2022 minutes as published.
Make a motion to accept the meeting minutes as published in the report.
A second.
Second.
All right. Commissioner Corsi. Oh, do we lose Phil? I think Phil might be frozen.
We might have lost him.
Yeah, no, I think we'd hold on the vote for 1 sec. I'll just text him. Let's see, I'm gonna try to give him a call. 1 sec. Okay, yeah, Phil's computer crashed. He's trying to get it rebooted, but he's going to try to call in. So I'll just give him a few minutes because we no longer have quorum.
While we wait, can I make a request to the chair that we actually move up the agenda item on project 2015A to discuss it early so that the folks from the public that are on the call may leave if they so desire?
I was thinking that, but I was also thinking of leaving the agenda as is. Happy to entertain other thoughts.
Tom, we still have a quorum. It only takes 3.
Oh, that's right.
So they could, if it's just the minutes, they could vote that.
Yeah. All right. Let's do that first. Oh,
So I was absent from last meeting, so I don't know if my vote would count or not.
yeah. Phil, is that you on the 508?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. All right. Awesome. All right. So I don't know where we lost you, Phil, but there was a motion and a second to accept the minutes as published. Just wanted to make sure that you didn't have anything to change in that.
No, I had no corrections.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Corsi.
Aye.
All right. Commissioner Calais.
Aye.
Commissioner Prifty.
Absentee vote.
Abstain. And myself, aye. The motion passes unanimously, 3 and absentee. All right. Commissioner Calais brought up asking to move the 2015A agenda item up to next. Is there any discussion or any opposition to that?
I have none.
All right. Okay. Sorry, Vinny and Paul. We'll move the 2015A discussion next. We'll go ahead and do that. Pete, if you want to give us an update first, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. The current, I'm sure you're all aware of the history. Back in May of last year, we put the project on pause to hear comments from the public, and we did make some technical changes to the project around hydrogen, around other items on the agenda. I mean, we've shared them before. I can read the whole thing, but more importantly, that at the end of July, we've voted to move the project forward again. It was brought back to the DPU to continue its process. The DPU approved the project's financing on August 12th of last year. The general public had until September 1st to appeal that. They did not. The project proceeded with its bonding, which took place in November, and now construction actually began in December. So the project is underway, and as of this point, site work is being done, foundations are due to be poured, and we will probably have large equipment, large portions of the project being delivered to the site over the next 3 months. So that's where we stand. The project is moving on schedule.
Thank you. Any discussion from any of the commissioners?
Well,
Yeah, I do.
go ahead.
It's Phil Corsi. I attended the Sustainable Wakefield meeting with the other commissioners and 6 people from the Light Plant Board. I registered to the meeting and I expected to hear, a long litany of the previously aired grievances against the plant. And we'd be on hand to provide a project update, dispel any misinformation, answer questions from the public. We were placed on mute. We never really got a chance to provide any kind of an update. Finally, the moderator asked anyone have any questions. Hearing none, she thanked everyone for their participation and ended the 30-minute long meeting. For the record, all 14 of the original participants are still part of the project. No one has sold their piece. Months ago, for us to cancel this would have been, $1.5 million. To cancel the project now, it would be 6.7 million, which we would get nothing for. And then we would then have to go out and seek additional capacity. We believe we need the capacity. We don't really agree with the math that's presented that say that the capacity doesn't pay for itself. The DPU approved this project in November 21 and stated that MWIC has shown that the 60 megawatt capacity resource will offer needed capacity as well as price stability for the project participants and the ratepayers.
Can you close the door, please?
The project obtained all the required permits and construction began in December 22. The prime mover and generator scheduled for delivery in July, August. The in-service date is expected June 2023. I'd like to enter the MWIC statement in response into the record. Also, I had some takeaway from the meetings that, in my opinion, the meeting was a complete bust. Only one true member of the public attended. The Sustainable Wakefield website didn't provide advance public notice, minutes of meeting. They don't record the Zoom sessions. It's unaccountable to the taxpayers and the ratepayers and doesn't have to justify their actions or decisions. I believe the duplicity of Sustainable Wakefield is remarkable and it crosses the line. They're using the website as a back channel of communication between the town and the Environmental Sustainability Committee, and they don't have to address the town open meeting laws. Why would the Light Department provide a liaison to the Environmental Sustainability Committee if they're not even going to allow us to speak at a public meeting? Or why would we allow the double dealing of receiving really an NCAM board member to be a liaison to our committee? And I'm having trouble believing there was an oversight to leave us on mute. I think the meeting was such a bust and panic. They wanted to end it. But if you're testing my gullibility, I don't have any plans to wait up for the Easter Bunny. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Other comments?
Well, I've long supported taking a vote on this. I think it's reasonable. I don't see any risk whatsoever from offering up our shares on this plant, even though I acknowledge that we don't know if we'll receive any offers and we don't know if the offers that we'll receive will be viable. I don't see anything lost from doing that. I've long questioned the economics, and that's in testimony before the state and has been documented. So I am fully supportive of taking a vote. I don't see any problem with doing that this evening, and I don't have any concern with that at all.
I have had some concern around the kind of long-term, stranded asset and financial aspects around the plant and having a stranded asset out there on this particular 2015A. Just looking at some of the stuff around the information on that we potentially have a stranded asset and saddling the ratepayers with that capacity over the long term.
From my perspective, I think I'm not convinced that there's an other alternative to provide that source of power to Wakefield as well as other municipals that this power plant or peaking plant will be providing in the long run. I mean, a couple of meetings ago, we saw what the forecast of ISO is for reaching some of the 2050 goals. And in order to achieve those goals, we're gonna need not just this Peabody peaking plant, but a lot more of the traditional generating power sources, not just renewable. I'm all for renewable, but they come in at a higher cost than a traditional power plant would come. Open to take the vote, but again, I don't see a point without more backup or more data to make me feel like we really should be thinking to go a different route compared to what we have progressed forward to this point. And the $6.7 million, I mean, that's a huge cost that needs to be eaten from all the Wakefield residents and customers that we would have to spend additional dollars to find that capacity elsewhere in the market. I know batteries have been talked about, but they're coming in right now, the average cost of installation of a 1 megawatt battery, and I'm not talking about megawatt hours because that's a different story, is coming in at about $2 million a megawatt based on what I'm seeing from the research that I've done, as well as the involvement that I've had at my day job. So to provide the necessary capacity of 55 MVA of a peaking plant for less than what we are being charged for from this more traditional, whether it's gas, oil, or biofuels or hydrogen, I don't see it as a viable economical option to move forward to a different alternative.
Getting back to your point, there were a few items that were mentioned at the sustainability meeting that we didn't really address that I feel were factually incorrect. One, Melissa at one point stated that the plant would have to be retired in 2050. That's not true at all. The goal is to be net zero by 2050, and there is no mandatory retirements of anything by 2050. So the plant is not going to be shut down in 2050. The point is that by that point, it'll be long since paid for, and it will be available resource that if it's needed, it's going to run, and if it's not needed, it's not going to run. But it's going to be available, which is the most important thing. It was also stated in that meeting that the PPA was somehow unique. The PPA that we have, which is a take or pay contract, is the standard PPA that we've been signing since the 1970s. It's exactly the same in terms of its terms and conditions, which means that whether we take or don't take anything from this plant, we have to pay for it. That's the only way the financing community will finance any project like this. And again, that was true when we built Seabrook, Millstone, Berkshire Wind, Hancock Hydro. Any project we've ever done, the financing community will not finance it without the take or pay provision. So it was almost implied that this was somehow unique, our PPA for this project. It's not true. And two systems did vote to attempt to sell their shares. Neither has received any offers for those shares. And they're still part of the project, as we would be until we could, find somebody that would want to buy it. And they're only going to buy it at cents on the dollar. They're not going to pay full price. And we've already spent almost $2 million at this point, and we are committed to the full 6.9 or 7, roughly $7 million at this point. So in terms of a stranded cost, we've already spent them. We're committed to the money at this point, and the asset is going to be built and it's going to be there. And if we step away from it now, we're going to end up having to replace the capacity in another way, as Phil said. So that's actually going to be a double cost to the consumer, not a single cost.
Well, it's not really a double cost, just to be clear, though.
Well, we're still going to be paying for 2015A without getting anything from it, and then we're going to have to buy capacity on the market.
Well, if you sell or transfer your shares and somebody else picks it up at a reasonable price, that is not double paying. That's all I'm saying.
It depends on where and how you sell those, but since there's no market for it right now,
Well, I still think that we should take a vote because we've been asked by folks on this call, and I think we do need to take a vote.
Okay,
I see no need to take the vote.
Commissioner Clay, if you'd like to make a motion, I'll entertain.
All right. I would like to make a motion that WMGLD provide notice to MWEC to sell or transfer the shares of this project.
We have a second. I will second the motion. I feel that we should take a vote.
Has Jack joined the call?
Jack has not joined the call. I've tried to reach him.
I think we should delay the vote till the next meeting.
I do think that potentially is reasonable. Since we don't have the full board here as well. Commissioner Calais, do you have any objections to withdrawing the motion since we don't have the full board here?
That's fine. We can have it at the next call.
Okay, we'll put it on the agenda for next meeting with vote anticipated. Any other discussion around 2015A?
So Tom, just to be clear, we're gonna, is Jen gonna withdraw the motion or are we gonna motion to table? Either way, I think works.
Yeah, let's motion to table since we don't have the full commissioners here. Oh, Jen, you're on mute.
Sorry, I have a child walking out the door.
Oh,
I'm fine with tabling it. So would that mean that the motion would appear in the next board book?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll table it for next time and the motion can appear for everyone's consideration in the next board book.
All right. Okay. Moving on to section 1, back up to section 1, the electrical system major project updates presented by Vinny and Paul of the electric side. Pete, did you want to do any introductions first or just have Vinny and Paul take it from there?
Sure, I think you guys have all met. Paul Redmond's our electric superintendent. Vinny's our senior electrical engineer. And last year, it might have been a month earlier, we just came to present what was going on in the system, what we're working on. And so I think, we want to try to make this more regular occurrence. So we invited them back this year to give just an update on what's going on from the electric system side. And we'll invite Jimmy Brown and Raven next month to talk about the gas system side. So I'll turn it over to them. Dave, are you going to share the screen?
Yep, I will. Okay, you can see it?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, good evening, everybody. Yeah, as Pete said, we did something similar last year, so we'll just go over with you what the plans are for 2022 and some stuff into 23.
Oh, sorry.
So I won't go into this in detail, but last year, we completed most of this, and some of this we knew were going to be multi-year projects, and a few of these things we're going to talk about tonight.
You're muted, Paul.
Oh, Is he?
You might be double muted.
Okay, hold on.
He's unmuted on Zoom, but his computer mic might be
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
Vinny, why don't you go ahead and you can work on that while he fixes his technical difficulty.
Sure. So this is a project we started last year. It's Water Street. Verizon put a lot of new poles in for us. We're basically bringing a new circuit from Wallace substation down the street, and it's going to feed the new, it's going to be a backup feed to the new McGrail substation we built last year. It's part of being able to feed the whole town with Wallace and BB substation.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go, Paul.
Okay. Thank you, Vinny. Sorry, everybody.
No worries. And Vinny, when you're just so for everyone, McGrail and Wallace, just you know, what those addresses are, just so some folks might and the public might not know what those refer to.
Okay. Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, Wallace substation is the one over by Irving near 95. It's 443 Salem Street. And McGrail substation is right in the middle of town on Water Street and across from Bowling Alley. And BB substation is over by the Saugus line on Farm Street, right on the Saugus line. Those are our three substations.
Thank you.
And Burns.
And Burns, but we'll get into Burns in a second. Burns will be going away. So that getting rid of Burns is one of our biggest initiatives starting last year, continuing this year, and our aim is to get rid of it entirely by the end of this year. And you can go to the next slide. All these things we're going to talk about. So Burns, built in 1960. It's been surprisingly reliable, but it's very old. We're going to be converting it, the whole area, to 13.8, retiring all of the old circuits, which we've already done a lot of. And we're freeing up that yard for a potential battery storage system, a double system of about 5 megawatts, we're hoping. And at the building, a lot of you probably already know this, we're in the process of converting some of our fleet to electric vehicles. And we're putting a lot of solar on the roof of the building, some of which will be ours, and some of which will be community solar for those of the public who don't have roofs that are good for solar. They can buy into this.
Okay, so the 2022 pole replacement, we've inspected every pole in the town and we prioritized our highest priorities, and we're going to finish the high priority poles this week. Verizon has said 41 poles. They're looking to do approximately 120. We've transferred more than half. We've transferred 23 of those poles. Next slide.
Northeast Metro Tech is being replaced, and we're working with them to have them go all electric with their heating system and develop an energy park in the area that's, we'll have a generator, a battery storage unit, and it'll be able to hopefully eliminate the need for backup generation in Northeast Metro Tech and the new high school. And it's really a pretty groundbreaking idea. And it's a huge goal for us in the next few years.
And Vinny, go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to say, can we jump in with questions? Go right ahead.
With the energy park, I know that there was talk about, one of the benefits is, especially being the VOC, that would also be used for educational, or potentially used for educational purposes, training the next generation of, tech workers.
Yeah, I mean, that's extremely valuable with a building that could have a lot of solar on the roof, electric car chargers. It's a perfect educational facility if they'll go with it.
Can you define the term energy park?
Yeah, it's basically, consists of an area that's concentrated with modern energy facilities like a battery storage unit and a generator that can support 2 buildings, and instead of having to have one each. And by putting a 250 kilowatt solar array on the roof and electric car chargers, it's basically kind of a test of how we can implement all these modern things and what's going to be a $300 million project. And they really should do something like this to set a good example. And it's our goal to make that happen.
And the generators are like backup generators? Is that what you're referring to?
It's
So we're
basically
going to eliminate the need on both schools for a diesel-fired generator with a single generator back at a common area, which will reduce the amount of generation that would be needed for both schools.
Yeah, and the battery storage unit would be the chief backup to the schools. So if they were ever to lose power, we would essentially have a microgrid that would be able to power either one of them for an amount of time. And if for some reason there was an extended outage, which there very, very rarely is, the generator can step in as well.
Just answer my question, Vinny. I was going to ask whether we're treating this as a microgrid and being able to island both of those buildings, the tech building as well as the potential new high school going in.
Yep.
Would we be? I know we're looking at the the new high school and the tech. I guess the third significant load there is the Woodville school. Would that also be able to be participating? I know we're not reconstructing that, but would it also be able to benefit from the energy park as well? Or is that something we're looking at?
Yeah, I think, ideally everybody benefits from the energy park, even if they're not directly connected to it in that immediate vicinity. As we were saying, if power goes out, which is very rare, it serves a purpose of being a backup in a microgrid, but under normal operation, you'd have a battery that can peak shave, and you'd have solar on the roof that's interconnected with the rest of our system, and everyone gets that benefit.
Thank you.
How significant are the challenges that you have here? Can you characterize that? Are they really significant, or are they kind of can they be overcome?
Technical issues are not as big as the political issues around the school and where they are in the process right now and their funding. At this point, they were pretty far down the path before they returned our call. We've been meeting with them on a weekly basis, trying to share ideas and make proposals to try to make something work, to use some of our energy conservation dollars on the commercial side, trying to reduce our utility interconnection costs and offer the ability for them to take the generator out of their price and move it to us, where we can try to construct something cheaper. We've made an offer around assisting them to get solar on the roof, where we would do something like the Amoresco project on their roof, and then they could get all the output for the building use, and then whatever they weren't using would flow back to charge the battery. So we've tried to make a creative proposal to them. I just don't. They're multi-million dollars over the authorized amount for the project right now because of the increased costs in the past year and a half with materials and labor over what was originally authorized. And the fact is that the state hasn't made any changes to their program, even though we signed into law the climate bill in last year. They haven't made any changes to the laws to reflect that this is mandatory, or it should be mandatory. So therefore, we're working hard, but again, it's going to depend on, and they're feeling a little bit of pressure, but ultimately they're looking at a $300 million project that's way over budget right now. So we're trying to help, but going all electric, they prepared an estimate that said going all electric will add about $2.1 million to their cost. We've tried to offset a lot of that by talking about taking the backup generation responsibility over to our side, by adding the solar through a partnership, by giving them some energy conservation dollars and some discounts on the utility interconnection. We've made up most of that $2.1 million overrun, but it's still, you know, it's going to be up to their analysis.
Have they,
Oh,
have they come back with, you know, I know that the capital cost of 2.1, you know, to go all electric, but, you know, we have seen through other projects and things, the operational efficiencies and the lifetime savings of that conversion is going to be a lot higher, you know, net savings than going down the continued path of, you know, heating via natural gas and cooling by traditional, you know, air conditioning. Are they taking those costs into consideration as well?
To an extent, but it's not their primary responsibility to deal with that. So, and again, there is big, especially if we help them put the solar on the roof right away, you know, we're going to offset the incremental electric cost, I would guess, based on the size of the array that we could potentially put up there. And again, if they could do that without any upfront cost to them through, you know, if we sign like an Amoresco type deal, then I think there's, you know, there's some huge benefit for them. But again, they have to factor that in. And the problem is that I could see so far is that Mass State School Building Committee is in a different place than the rest of the people are politically. So it's that's the biggest barrier we have right now. I think we could certainly bid and finance the microgrid creatively through either partnerships or financing. So there's a lot of opportunities for us to manage the energy park side of it. It's the bigger issue is going to be the State Building Commission and the tech itself.
and when is the next kind of deadline or decision-making?
So we met this week to put together a package that we're finishing a letter. We're going to get them by Friday, and then next week they're going to get back to us after they analyze the latest offer that we made them.
Could the potential application for grant money through the IIJA bill be considered in this case? I mean, I think MWIC is going and looking into that, but could this project be part of a potential grant proposal for the IIJA bill?
Yeah, so what we would end up probably having to apply for the grants and help finance, you know, the project itself, the energy park project. So, but we can't certainly make any promises to them. They may be able to get, I think they're going to be looking for all sources of money that they can get to for other reasons. But we couldn't make them any grant promises, obviously, but we will, as we look to build the microgrid in the energy park, we would be looking to those grant sources for ourselves to build the energy park portion of it.
Yeah.
I mean, we are hoping for state support too, because of the location between two schools. It's ideal, especially that they're high schools, that they can integrate the energy park, all the equipment, how it interacts with the grid, how it generates electricity. All that could be integrated into the curriculum at the schools, especially the VOTEC. So, you know, they're educate, you know, the young adults, so they're familiar with the technology and how it's used. So I think, you know, there's a huge educational benefit or component to this, along with the benefit for the schools with the town by having a microgrid in this area with a you know, an emergency shelter for the microgrid. So there's really, I mean, there's a lot of complexities to it, but there's a lot of benefits as well, long term. Okay.
Yeah, so moving on, more about batteries, but I mentioned earlier, Burns, once we get rid of it, we'll have quite a big lot to put in something that looks like that dual battery unit. And this is tentative at this point, but it's going through MWIC, and we're optimistic that something like this will be able to happen.
Where MWorks stands right now is they had 14 municipals that were interested in battery projects like this. And there's multiple vendors out there that are looking at, approaching each of us on a daily basis. So MWorks going to handle a bid process where they're going to provide option. They're going out to bid for basically a cookie cutter 5 megawatt / 15 megawatt hour battery setup. And they will, what they'll do is get pricing for both a direct purchase with a pool loan or a long-term lease option. So we'll be able to look at those. We're hoping that there's economies of scale, since there's going to be potential for anywhere from 10 to 15 of these units, that we get a much better price from the vendors, and that we're looking for 2 pricing options: a long-term lease shared savings option, or a straight purchase through the pool loan. So we'll have more analysis on that in the coming months.
This is, I have to say, really cool, because what it's showing is that, I mean, at least for me, is that, yeah, it's hard to find like one space for, a 50 or 60 megawatt, battery storage. But if you pool the substation land across all of the munis, that you actually, available space, that you actually can install a significant amount of battery storage with just the existing, owned land by those entities. And so I think that this is a really cool aggregation project that you guys are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Preston Street, right now that's fed off of W30 through 3 step-down transformers, stepping it down to 4 kV. We need to do some pole replacements there, running 2,300 feet of new primary. Then we'll be able to remove the step-downs and energize that with W30, which also will give us a tie to W32, giving us more tie options on the 13.8 system. Next slide. 1380 underground feed. It's a 50-year-old underground feeder that's lead poly from BB station to McGrail station, about 9,000 feet. This will be a good opportunity to upgrade that and increase our reliability there. So we're not having much problems with it now, but testing has shown that it is time to replace. So this will be another great upgrade to the system.
So Vinny, you want to just give a second on the fact how many lines go from BB to McGrail now? One's relatively new, one's like half. And
Yeah, we got 4 lines that go from BB to McGrail. And for those of you who don't know, McGrail is our central substation, so it needs to be connected to the other 2. And out of those 4, 2 of them are brand new, and 2 of them are pretty old. I mean, they were installed at the same time BB was installed. So they're, in this particular one, the mega readings haven't been great on it. It hasn't had any cable failures, but it's definitely due for replacement. It's got lead poly cable, which is really the only cable that ever fails that we've seen.
Is that a manhole and duct system or direct dirt?
Sorry, what was that?
manhole
Is that
duct.
manhole and duct or direct dirt?
Yeah, it's all manhole and duct. We don't have any direct buried.
Well, we have one little piece of it at the head of the lake we'll have to deal with the next project.
The project, yep. Okay. I remember that.
I actually think that's in conduit, but we'll have to look at the records on that.
It's not really clear what's in conduit and what's buried.
Yeah,
There's a combination of mishmash up there.
Yeah, the records are from the 80s are not great. So yeah, this project is going to have 3 buildings, 440 units. It's a huge development. We are pushing for more car chargers and a lot of new equipment we're going to buy for this. It's going to move a little slower. It's probably not going to really get going until 2024, but we're already well in talks with them on this project. So. And being right near 95, it's a prime location for a couple of level 3 car chargers as well, which we'll be putting in.
I was just going to ask, out of those 26, are those some of those DC fast, or will the DC fast be on top of those 26?
They're all level 2s.
Okay, so those 26. All right. So any
26 level 2s.
okay. So any DC fast would be in addition to those.
Yeah, we're not putting any DC charges up there on the lot. We do have, we were awarded the grant for $100,000 for 2 DC fast charges that will go closer to the rotary by the hot dog stand. So working with the town right now to select and the developer to select the best location. But for those 2 charges, they will be installed on public land because you need public access. And that was part of the grant award. And they'd like to make sure it's closer to the rotary, keep it on 128, close to 128, but they'll be close to this development, Tom, the DC fast charges.
What do we know, is the developer themselves looking to install DC fast? I know that they have, one of the reasons why I ask is that, they're committed to, providing a shuttle bus for the residents, to and from this development to downtown. I know that there is an ask to make that shuttle bus be in EV, which, I would think would require a DC fast fleet type charging. So, and I know there's a lot of power up there. Just wanted to make sure that, the developer is
So that's
communicating those plans with you.
The answer is no, they are not planning to put a DC charger in, fast charger in. There's, I mean, I can communicate with the ZBA to find out what conditions that they're placing on this project for that. If they're putting a shuttle bus in that's electric, then we'd have to put a different voltage in for the location where the pickup would be for the shuttle bus, because it would have to be 277 480, and their voltage is 12208. So that would require some additional transformers, a transformer in the area for that. But is not part of the discussion right now, and they haven't mentioned it, and neither has the ZBA. But I can certainly send them some correspondence to mention that to them.
Yeah, I just want to point out, if a bus is just going from there to downtown every day, it's only about a mile. You could easily charge with a level 2, no problem. Not going to use too much power.
So
there are also advances in technology right now with some of the lower voltage level or high density chargers. We're looking at one for the plant also, a level 3 charger that doesn't require the 277 480. It can be fed off. So there's advances in technology that they may be able to consider for a bus over there later on.
yeah, some options.
Yeah, I just wanted to, put that on the radar.
No, that's good to know. Yeah, I was not aware of it, Tom, and I've been in conversation with the ZBA, and I've also I meet with the developer weekly, and this was the first time about the shuttle bus that could be electric.
Okay, yeah, I think that's something that's gonna be coming out of the sustainability committee to the ZBA around the shuttle bus.
No, that's good, because last time I spoke with the ZBA, they know that we'll be sending them some comments regarding what we would like to see in the project as well. And so I'll add that to the list.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Now we're just any questions for Vinny or Paul?
No, I want to say, thank you. It's great to, see these updates and appreciate the hard work that your whole team does. It's been tremendous work since I've been on the board. I know that, it's not always glamorous and, out in front, but it is important infrastructure work that, keeps our lights on, and the reliability, I know Vinny, you mentioned many times that, we very rarely use power, and that is a testament to the work that you guys and the team does. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with that statement. There are a lot of cool projects going on, and I'm just wondering how we get the word out beyond this board and this utility about all the exciting work that is on the horizon. So I hope we can continue to do that. And I think there's a lot here that would be really interesting to folks. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Good job.
Thanks. You're welcome to stay or and continue on, or if we won't be offended if you
I'm
want
gonna
to
stick around.
All right. All right, Pete, over to you for the winter gas and electric supply status update.
Yeah, so we still haven't seen our March bill yet, but our February bill was a little bit better on the gas side. They were able to utilize the peaking capacity effectively. So we were able to drop our cost of gas charge, I think, by 15 cents this month, Mark, was it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we were able to make some significant progress on that. Electric's lagging a little bit because it's more steady state on the, we had some direct control over what we could do on the gas side. Electric is kind of hanging on, but we will be able to drop that probably in another month or two. So overall, again, it was a tough winter, especially January. I haven't seen March yet, although March was a little cold at the end. So I don't know if it was unseasonably cold or just kind of normally cold. So we'll wait and see how the results come in. But I think the resources that we put in place that Mark Roberts and Matt I talked about back in November and December have done were very valuable to us. Mark and I later this month are going to be talking to Mark Roberts about our plans for this coming year. I don't know, I probably chatted with a couple of you about this topic, but so for the past 4 years, since 2017, we've had to basically take out a kind of an insurance policy. So for the first 2 years, we had Rev LNG and the portable LNG contract. And then the last 2 years, we were able to get a contract from the LNG station out of Everett to provide that emergency peaking support. The way we purchased our gas this winter, we used more of National Grid than the take station. Because of that, we should be eligible for a higher allocation this year. And so hopefully we will be able to avoid that emergency insurance policy next year, but we're gonna have to do some analysis on that to see if the actions we were able to take this winter will benefit us going forward. So Mark Roberts, Mark and I are going to talk at the end of the month a little bit more about that's kind of the future, looking at next winter and a couple winters beyond that. So that's where we stand. I don't know if there's any other questions on that.
I don't, other than thanks for continuing to monitor that. I know that this year has been especially tough, and certainly the strategy that we've had with the layering is paying off in that aspect.
I mean, I think the question for Mark is, are we, when I look at the graphs you provided on receivables aging and whatnot, is there an update there in terms of customers being able to afford their bills? Are we, where do we stand relative to past years? And is there anything that we should be concerned about at this juncture?
So for right now, to answer your question, Jen, the graph kind of tells it all. I mean, right now we're not in panic mode. As far as that goes on the graphs, is people paying their bills and whatnot. So, we are in a better position, much better position since since last year, and when COVID hit. So coming out of that, we're in a little bit more of a favorable position, even though some of the bills have been higher. So, we're not out of the woods yet. We still have a, March to go, but cautiously optimistic, if that helps. So.
And on that, I know
one of the benefits that we have had this year, there are more resources to folks that are having trouble. and we have been able to point them to more sources of potential assistance. So that's been kind of helpful to keep people current. And, you know, Robin's been working very carefully day after day to kind of talk to people and make sure that they're trying to minimally set up plans if they can. The moratorium ends on really March 15th, but we always go to April 15th. So we will be, you know, there are still customers that ignore us and they wait till April and they find themselves in trouble. And that's kind of the problem we've got, but that's a traditional problem. That's nothing special this winter. So those people are usually the ones that find themselves in trouble. If they've blown us off all winter and they don't want to talk to us, when it comes to spring, all of a sudden you're on the shut off list. And
Right.
so that's not new. So.
Yeah. And you've been, by the time you're on that list, you've been contacted by mail, by phone, and so on and so forth. It's not through lack of trying on our part anyway. So.
And I know I asked this question last month, but is there, you know, it sounds like there potentially is an uptick, as there normally is around this, but is that uptick, you know, more noticeable this year than in past years, or are we kind of on par with previous years?
So the answer to that is yes and no. So I'll give you a double answer, because percentage wise, you know, the receivables, when we look at it, we look at anybody who's 60 days old, balance 60 days old, 90 days old, and that type of thing. That's been a little bit better. We've done a little bit better than consistent with prior years. However, like I mentioned before, the dollars are much bigger this year to previous bills, just because of the energy environment that we're in. So dollar wise, not so much. However, percentage wise, which is really what tells the tale, the percentage of people that are paying their bills or not paying their bills, that's performing better, a little bit slightly better than in years past. So it's a split decision on that one, Tom.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right. Any other discussion on the supply side? On that update. Moving to the gas moratorium, Commissioner Calais had asked that we have a discussion around the moratorium. Jen, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. So a few months ago now, we had some discussion about the existing moratorium and around a specific customer who had asked for an exemption. That was, I think, earlier in the year. And there were a number of meetings around that. And through that discussion came up the idea of whether the moratorium is equitable, and whether to, in fact, bring new construction single family into that moratorium. So that's what I wanted to bring back tonight for further discussion. I believe at that time I had raised the idea and I said that I was supportive of having it be more all-encompassing of new construction in particular. And it sounded like there were other folks interested in discussing that in more detail, at least, or the concept of it and what the pros and cons would be. So I really just wanted to open up the discussion for that and to see if there, other commissioners' thoughts.
I'll throw my 2 cents in first. You know, I think that particular situation and some of the examples brought up, the comparison showed a kind of a failure of the moratorium in that specific instance of where the goal of the moratorium was to kind of protect the peaking capacity, and the example that was being utilized, well, square footage is the same as some new construction single family homes, but because I'm constructing a multifamily, I'm being denied that from the moratorium. And I think that particular case was an example of where the moratorium didn't fit some of the goals that we had initially put forth. So I'm also open to exploring how we can potentially adjust that as well. Any other discussion, Elton, Phil?
is this going to be for new construction or even upgrades to existing single-family houses that somebody is upgrading a furnace or asking for an increase on the gas service capacity?
Good question. I believe we have only been in the new construction space to date, and we haven't been in the major renovation space yet with this moratorium. So that's another angle to discuss.
Okay. I mean, I'll lean more towards new construction personally, rather than getting into defining what major renovation is, because that could be another can of worm. If we go down that path, I think I would like to, or propose to, give people a grace period as far as not or having the moratorium go into effect right away. It could help with some of the existing applications that are going through the building department or on new construction homes. So people have already made their plans, costed out the projects. So it might be a burden on somebody, similar to what we're talking about with the Vogue school, right? Where going to full electric could be a burden to some of the customers. So regardless of which way we go, again, sort of a buffer period would probably be something that we should think about before the moratorium goes into effect.
So the way we handled it when we went to the moratorium for multifamilies was we said that any building permit that was already either approval through the ZBA planning board or an existing building permit, they were exempt. But anything new after that, those three things that, so on that date we voted, anything that was basically already in process was exempted. Anything from that point on had to go through, or was basically not allowed to have gas.
And that could work too.
And John, when you say new construction, that is and maybe this is the definition that we need to potentially get from the building inspector. So like there's different definitions. Is it new construction when someone takes an existing home and rips it literally to the foundation? Is that considered new construction versus pouring a new foundation, and where those thresholds are? Just some of the thoughts around that.
Pete, do you have any information on that just from our existing policy? Because I would think it would come into play even with conversions into multifamily and whatnot.
Yeah, well, it's been easy because if they were converting to a multifamily, we haven't let them. But we have let, like, if they leave a single wall up and it's considered a quote unquote renovation, we have allowed it for those customers. The place where we veered off is like when we talked about that customer from last fall, that he was kind of doing both. He was trying to say that it was a single family, but actually making it a multifamily, and he was kind of all over the place. And ultimately it was becoming a multifamily. He wanted multiple meters, and so that made it clearly outside. In this case, we would have to decide whether we would want to include that type of situation or not. So
I would think that we would just align with the town's definition and not try to recreate our own for this purpose. Whatever that definition might be.
I honestly don't know exactly how they deal with it, but we'd have to learn that from the building department. But I'm sure there's clearly a definition that's the difference between a renovation and a new construction. So we can find that out and use that definition to the letter.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the consideration of if somebody purchases a small house, demos it, and puts a bigger one, the gas could be an existing service. So again, I don't know if we should be disallowing them from interconnecting to the gas system, if there are cases to that nature or not, but open for discussion. And again, we should be aligning with whatever the building department says what major renovations or new construction is. So
And Elton, your example there brings kind of, one of those gray areas where you kind of have to think about, where the moratorium is in place to limit the peak and, adding that new load. And, so you're taking say 1,000 square foot home and reconstructing it to, a 3,000, 4,000 square, that adds more load.
Right.
Obviously, I know that we have processes in place that when someone is asking for new gas service, that we're being consultative and alternatives to explore before going down that route. But I think the moratorium is kind of that last defense that we have in that aspect. And clearly that has worked in the larger complexes. Is the one that Vinny just showed, that those 440 units are all going heat pump
Right.
in the presentation. So, and from the last meeting, the analysis that was done on the just the overall cost savings that were shown between that and also the environmental benefits as well.
I think it's a possible and logical next step if we can get a proper definition of new construction and expand the moratorium to that level. That's probably, I don't think that has as big an impact as potentially the next step, which would potentially be telling Mrs. Smith in her house that she's had for a lot of years that, would like to switch over because her oil burner's gone. That's kind of a different animal. But I mean, we could certainly come up with a proper definition and expand the moratorium to include new construction.
Yeah, Pete, if you could do that, bring what a proposed amendment to the new an amendment to the moratorium for new construction, what that would look like for the board to possibly vote on in a future meeting.
Mm-hmm. We can bring that next one.
Any other discussion? All right, I'll take silence as a no. All right, let's move into the public section of the review of the 2021 performance and the discussion of the 22 goals. I don't know if Phil or Jen, you have that to share or display.
Yeah, I'm just reacting to the fact that in the book, the next thing that comes is the annual report. So I apologize. I'm a little thrown off for 1 second.
Well, number 3 in the old business was review 21 performance and discuss 22 goals.
Okay. Sure. Do we want it up on a screen?
I think that might be helpful. Just
Okay.
Kind of.
You'll have to forgive me. I need a second. In the meantime, I can speak to it as I kind of get adjusted.
Put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. I was thinking I had a little bit more time to get ready, but it happens.
We can come back to it since part of it's probably going to go into executive session. Would you rather that we talk about the next 2 items and conclude with that, Tom? That might make more sense.
That actually might make more sense since that'll roll into executive session. So let's move on to the new business and let's the 2021 DPU report. I think that goes to Mark.
Yeah, so the DPU report you're actually given 2 copies of it. It's actually in the board packet, like Jen was referring to. It's actually printed in the board packet. Additionally, there is a bound cover. There was a bound clear covered with a red back that was stuck into everybody's printed board pardon me, envelope that was delivered that Tom just held up. What we're trying to do tonight is execute the DPU report, get signatures from the commissioners. If you could sign that signature page, that was slipped under the front cover. Place it in the envelope with my name on it, and put it in the just throw it in the Dropbox out front of the office anytime this week or at your earliest convenience would be good. So to go over the DPU report real quickly.
And Phil will get yours when you get back.
Yeah, that's fine. Yep. So to go over the DPU report real quickly, what the information contained in the DPU report is it has both financial and statistical information. We've prepared every year. It is for comparative. It's used in Boston at the DPU for comparative purposes. And some of the financial information is really duplicated from the financial statements, which we're going to talk about in a second anyway. It has a balance sheet. It has an income statement and all that. Additionally, the statistical information, it talks about the number of miles of conductors we have, the number of poles we have, the number of gas meters and electric meters we have, the throughput of the gas department, the kilowatt hour sales of the light department, and those are the nature of the statistical information that it has. So it's a bunch of information that in a prescribed format that the DPU is looking for from every utility in the Commonwealth. And it's a compliance type report that I put together every year. And we asked the commissioners to sign off on it so we could submit it to the DPU. So,
Mark, my question, do we ever get any feedback from the DPU, or do they come back with us on any issues or things?
I have in the past, if I've missed a number or something for some reason, I have been contacted in the past. Last couple of years, it hasn't, even pre-COVID, last 5 or 6, I think I haven't had any contact with them at all. I guess maybe it is as I get older, I get better at putting these things together. I don't know.
You stop making up the numbers and start using real ones.
Yeah, there's too many numbers for them to look at. Maybe I don't know. But so I haven't had any in the recent history. So I'll take that as a win, I guess, from the DPU. So.
So if there's no other questions, we just need a motion to approve the report, and then the signatures, if you could just drop them in the box and we'll grab Phil's when he's done, when he gets back.
Can I ask a quick question though on the gas rates that are in the back here?
Mm-hmm.
So I know we have kind of fuel adjustments, right? When we're in periods where, as we are now, where fuel costs are high. Are those captured here, or are they incremental to what is shown in these rates?
The latter. It's not captured here. It's not specifically spelled out. What it talks about in, pardon me, what it talks about in a fuel adjustment clause is the ability for the department, for us to actually adjust the rate based on the actual cost of fuel. And we're given that, us and every other utility, we're given that latitude because we'd be filing a new rate with the and they don't want to see it every month either. So so it's by design.
Okay.
That it's put together, that the tariffs are put together that way. So
okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or discussion? I will then entertain a motion to accept the DPU report for 2021.
I'll make the motion to accept the DPU report from 2021.
I'll second that.
All right, second. All right, Commissioner Corsi.
Aye.
Commissioner Calais.
Aye.
Commissioner Prifty.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion passes unanimously. All right, Pete, moving on to project 2022A, the MWEC battery project.
I have one more item real quick, Tom.
Oh,
The other item that I had included in the packet was the audited financial statements for 2021. They issued the actual final statements. The board had actually voted in November, and they were presented in November by the auditors. The board had voted them at that time. There was one number that always lags, and it's the pension number, because the town's auditors audit the retirement board. So we have to wait for that one number. It had not substantially differed from the prior year. They include the prior year numbers in there. So you all now have a copy of the final audit. It's already been voted. It's just for informational purposes. If anybody has any other questions, you have it. You can ask me now or offline or whatever.
Traditionally, in November, we take a contingent vote that says
Yeah.
as long as that number doesn't material change, we're just gonna give it out to you when it's available.
I recall that. Any questions on that from any of the other commissioners?
No.
Oh, great. All right.
We'll see you again in November, Mark.
Thanks, guys.
Your job is concluded.
Yeah.
Project 2022A is the MWEC battery project. I forwarded. There's two actually active projects right now. 21A, which we'll talk about next month, which is the offshore wind, and 22A, which is the MWEC battery project, which, believe it or not, and from a scheduling perspective, is a little bit ahead of the offshore wind stuff. So that's why 2022A is in front of you tonight. There's a lot of information. If we do want to talk about any of the financials, we do have to go into executive session. That's why I provided them to you under a separate cover and a separate email. I don't know if you have any questions about those. What we require tonight is one of the items was actually a vote. And so we're open to talk about it. So the battery project will be built in Ludlow. It's about 110 megawatt battery system. And it's being built with a partner, and we would be 35% owners of that 100 megawatt project, basically. So MWEC's got approximately 35 megawatts of that, or 39 out of 110 or whatever. And we would be a 2.85% participant. So our share is roughly a little over 1 megawatt. So that's where we would stand. We think it's a good I've spoken many times as we've had these power supply discussions that we're really looking to have layers because there aren't going to be, for the foreseeable future, we don't see, and as Elton noted, that we don't see any big units coming down the path right now. There's a lot of pain even fighting about a peaker, never mind a big unit. So right now, we just need to keep adding layers of capacity and layers of energy. So next month, we're going to talk about offshore wind from an energy perspective, but this is another layer of capacity. So we're looking at this as another piece of the pie. We don't feel that it replaces 15A, it supplements 15A, and that's why we're looking at a project like this. The issue that is at hand is that they tried to bid into the market, but the MOPR, or the minimum offer price rule, they were actually going to potentially be able to bid in at a lower price than the minimum offer price required, and therefore they didn't clear the market this year. So if we vote to participate in this project, which I think we should, it will be very similar to 2015A in that we will not actually proceed beyond engineering until we clear the market. So that's what happened. You'll recall that in 2015, we voted to participate, but we didn't clear the market till 2017. So that's when we started to proceed with engineering and contracting and all that. This project will go much quicker than that because it's a little more canned and a little, there's fewer issues associated with it, especially where we're the landowner. And, so there's different issues that will make this be able to go quicker once we clear the market. I know Tom had asked to talk a little bit about the minimum offer price rule. It was originally slated to go away this year, but a combination of FERC and ISO New England requested that it be continued. So it has actually been continued for 2 more years. So the rule will not be going away at least until 24. It's possible that the numbers change next year and we could still build this project in, but we definitely won't proceed with anything major beyond, beyond design engineering until we actually clear into the market.
Is on that, and I know that IS New England and FERC are also considering, you mentioned changes that only 50% of the nameplate would be able to participate into the forward capacity. Is that being considered here? I know we probably can talk about the financials in its executive session, but at a high level.
Yeah, at a high level, I think they're basing it on the rules that are in place. Yeah. I mean, obviously the limitations with batteries obviously is either the output or the duration. So we run our battery differently depending on the day and the forecasted peak. If we're confident that the peak is going to be between 5 and 6, we'll run that battery so that a lot more is being outputted between 5 and 6. If we are not as sure that it could be between 4 and 7, we'll run less output for that battery for a longer period of time. So that's why some of those bidding restrictions exist, that there is, there's some restrictions on batteries, obviously, that are different from a generator. So that's why they have limited rules, because operation of these batteries definitely have variables.
So just so I'm clear, does MOPR have to go away for us to be able to participate in this and for this project to move forward? Or do we just have to bid in the near term over MOPR?
So no, we actually have to bid. We can't bid in under MOPR. We have to bid in at the predefined price defined by MOPR for battery projects. So it's a prescribed number. So we have to bid in at that number. Even if we could do it cheaper, we have to bid in at that number.
So does that just affect, just so I understand how this actually works in practice? So if we bid in for, and I'm just making up dates right now, maybe you can correct me, like 2024 as an example, and MOPR is still in place. And MOPR says that batteries have to bid in at $4. We would have to bid in at $4 in 2024, but if MOPR went away in 2025, then we could bid in that year lower?
Yes.
Okay, I think I get
So
it.
when MOPR goes away, we'll be able to bid in what we forecast our true cost to be.
So this is not like well, it could be a long-term problem, but it's more likely a shorter-term problem until, maybe a year or two in this entire project.
Right now, it's been moved. Yeah, it's been moved out 2 years. So MOPR has been continued for 2 years. So the next 2 bid cycles. So, again, hopefully that changes or goes away. But at this point, the MOPR price defined for the batteries is not clearing the market. So.
Okay. And if MOPR, what happens in the scenario that MOPR never goes away?
I don't
because
know.
this
I
project
think,
would, we'd build the project, but it'd be uneconomic, correct?
no, we wouldn't build the project. We wouldn't go beyond the engineering phase.
So
we're not going to reel batteries onto the site until, again, if you think of this exactly like 15A from our scheduling and planning perspective, we didn't put shovels in the ground until we were past a certain point in the approval and this, so we cleared the market in 17 and then had to go through all these approvals. And then we finally put shovels in the ground. So we wouldn't get to that place. So we were committed to engineering dollars at the beginning. And then the cost gradually grew as we got further along in the project. So we're committing to the engineering dollars right now. And then going forward, we'd be part of the whole project once we clear the market and bid in. But they're not going to build it just hoping that we ultimately get into the market. We'll only do it when we know we're in the market.
Okay. I think I follow. Okay.
I
Thank
think
you.
you got muted, Jen.
Pete, what did you say was going to be our share
2.85%.
of the 35 or the 100?
35.
For the 35, okay. And for the engineering phase, what are we talking about from a dollar perspective? Or
Yeah. Looks like our share would be development about $270,000.
Okay.
271, 718.
So Pete, when just out of that 35, just doing quick math, that 2.85, that's about a megawatt. Is that, did I do that correctly?
Yep.
And this would be just impact, bidding in for capacity, so essentially be having a megawatt bid into the capacity market for whenever it's called upon.
Correct.
And I forget, do the batteries also get the capacity payment, or are we still, or do we just getting the payment for the energy served, the capacity?
Oh, we get the capacity payment. It's a
Yes.
capacity resource.
Okay. I know that there was some talk about the rules potentially changing on that, and that was where I guess maybe the 50% of the nameplate for capacity going in.
Mhm.
On the Clean Peak standard, we obviously don't have a requirement there, but it looks like we receive some financial remuneration from that, but it lasts for 10 of the 20 years. Do you have more details on that?
It's part of the partnership with the third party.
Mhm. Okay, so basically the third party would get the, if there were, I don't know the way this, like credits essentially toward meeting the Clean Peak standard on our behalf. Okay. And we get the payment for that. If we have questions on cost, we need to go into executive session, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, I have some questions.
Okay. Do we want to, maybe I'm thinking,
Why don't we go through the public portion of the goals, and then we can go into executive session for any, we have a very brief collective bargaining update. And then we can talk about any questions about 15A, 2022A financial stuff. And then we can conclude with your review of 21.
yeah, I was saying we can come out and potentially, do we need a vote on 2022A tonight, or?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so yeah, so we can go into executive session, talk about those things, come out for a vote on that. So Jen, I guess we'll move back to you for the 21-22, you and Phil, for the public part of that, and then obviously we have to do the 21 performance and evaluation and executive session as well. So.
Yep. Okay. Give me 1 second to pull up that screen. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Can see it. Good.
Okay. So last time we were here, we walked through the 2021 performance that Pete had recorded in the form, essentially. This time, so since that point in time, as Phil mentioned, he and I have met with, between ourselves, and then we met with Pete to draft some performance goals for 2022. And what I'll do is just give a, as quick as possible, overview of what changed. And kind of, I'll start with a summary. So I think the three things that changed here, key things that changed here, is first incorporating a number of existing initiatives that were really started in 2021. And we did ask that they be recorded under major items not mentioned for that year, but it's really incorporating them as, more formally into the goals for 2022. Those initiatives include all the work on green communities to support the town, both in its application and in achievement of those goals. Second piece is, assisting the town with some of the major construction projects that WMGLD has already been working on, namely the VOC and the high school projects. And the last piece is, any assistance now or moving forward on codes, and related, I would say, accompanying technical requirements for WMGLD that's associated with those codes. And in particular, we discussed things like solar ready and electric vehicle ready codes that are being contemplated in the near term. The other big change is a shift from a focus pretty solely on website updates to broadening that out to a broader focus on marketing and increasing awareness of customers of all the good work that's been going on over the last couple of years. We're coming out of COVID, hopefully a little bit, and so that gives people a little more bandwidth to do some of the projects that might have been put on hold for a while there was a lot of uncertainty and inability to do work. And then the last piece is incorporating in, I think Phil made some really good points about energy market instabilities and global insecurity in terms of energy. And so really folding that in to the goals for 2022 with the assumption that they will be impacting us for a little bit longer term. And so really recognizing that here. So those are the three big changes. I'm going to walk through now each section and kind of which pieces changed more specifically because we didn't provide a really good red line copy here. So under section B.1, performance goals safety, we updated, which I'm highlighting right here, number 5. I think previously this said, execute a certain plan. There's more uncertainty now in terms of what will be required with COVID-19 in 2022. So we just made a general goal of respond to it as needed over the year. Under B.2 operational, sorry, I need to flip my page. Key change here is on number 4E. In the past, so we've contemplated changing from a percentage goal to an actual hard number, and this is the first year that we did. This used to say reduce class 3 leaks by 15%. As those leaks the number gets lower, the 15% is actually a higher goal as a percentage, in terms of a number out of the total. So we changed it to a hard goal here of 60 by year end from where we are today. Moving into section B.3, this is the customer service section. This first section is really the bigger change here. So this is now changed to being increase awareness of energy programs through improved marketing and outreach. There's some sub goals here, A and B. I will say that this is actually still a little bit of a work in progress. So this is language put forward by WMGLD for our consideration and edit. Tonight we can discuss, after I kind of get through here, this language, and we can decide if updates are warranted, not only to this language, but anything else, because this is still a draft at this point in time. We talked about, so this language here on 2 topic specific forums didn't necessarily change, but we talked about 2 ideas that I just wanted to make you aware of. One of them is talking about those kind of energy market instabilities and having a session for customers to really understand what the impacts of that are for them, both short and long term, and what we think about when we talk about that from a number of different vantage points. The second piece that we talked about potentially was having like an EV focused, EV 101 session where we'd introduce people to some concepts that maybe they'll be hearing more about in the future. Anything from kind of costs of EVs, offerings from the department, but also could get into kind of what is a time of use rate, how can it benefit me, that kind of thing. So we wouldn't necessarily, I think this year, be ready to put forth a lot of detail on a program offering until later on in the year, but we certainly could tee up some conversations about general concepts that customers might be coming into contact with more and more. Here under 2B, you start to see information, some of the text on energy market instabilities here. So providing customers with information on fossil fuel supply and cost issues stemming from market instabilities. So that's where that appears there. In C, this is very similar to the goal that we had before about engaging technical assistance specifically related to heat pumps and EVs. We just name Abode at this point, and we identify that we're looking for an EV solution provider, again, to fill in that need for technical assistance direct to customers. On section B.4 financial, there's now a new section, actually, so there's an update to section 5 here, talking about managing account receivable growth due to both COVID-19 and energy market instabilities. 6 is brand new in terms of managing our WMGLD costs from, again, energy market instabilities, and there are 3 sub-goals here. One is focused on supply costs for natural gas and electricity. One is focused on dependence on gasoline and diesel fuels in company vehicle operations. And then there's a third that's customer facing, talking about the impact of changes to fossil fuel costs on customer rates and bills and some mitigation options that we can offer. Section B.5 environmental. This was here before 1.A, but it's been updated to basically say now continually strive to incorporate non-carbon emitting resources and identify the metric, which is a percentage of annual megawatt hour sales. The community solar project is still here, but this has been updated now to say install, design, and an effective program for and subscribe customers, because that's where we are at this point in time. And we've included support the DPW in installing more solar on their municipal buildings, as that's still underway.
Jen, on that one, do we want to, I know supporting the DPW, but do we want to make that just broader, just municipal buildings?
So do you mean remove DPW in particular?
No, I know that, DPW has another project, coming up, but do we want to just, when a municipal entity comes to us, just helping support them, whether it's a DPW or another department within the municipality? So just making that a little bit broader to support any.
Yeah, support town.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see a problem with that. This battery goal is still retained pretty much very similarly from last year. So developing with a few tweaks. So developing a proposal on how to initiate a residential and small commercial battery incentive offering. Under 3 is where you see some of the new items that I talked about at the beginning, recognized here under C, D, and E. So supporting the town to reduce carbon emissions in school building projects, supporting building code development and adoption, and supporting the town on implementation of green communities. And under leadership back here, there were really no changes. Previously, under goal 5, There was a second sub-goal here, B, which referred to developing marketing plans, but since that's now been rolled in as kind of a major goal under a different section, that's been removed. So I think there's two things we, wanted to do. One is to certainly get your overarching feedback, but we also wanted to have a more focused discussion, I think, on the market, the increased awareness marketing goal, to determine if there's any, if the sub goals as written are satisfactory, or whether there's other ideas that haven't been represented here. And I'll just go back up to that one, but we can certainly page to any of the pages here if people want to talk about any of the other goals.
Pete, did you want to provide feedback first, or any other?
Well, I support this language. I think originally the form that it took was more like individually program specific goals, and I don't think that's really a fair goal, because there are multiple variables, many of which are out of our control, to say whether one program is going to grow or not. So I think the way we've worded this is a fair goal. I think, again, the other issue I had as a generic form is that we have a $4.3 million capital budget that we've included as a single line item in this, and yet we want to break out energy conservation programs in level of detail in this goals and objectives that, I don't think it's reflective of, the overall percentage focus of the year, where you would equate growing the Connected Homes program by 3 customers to similar to the equivalent of a $4.3 million capital budget. So I think the wording here accurately reflects, what we can do and what we want to do, and what I know it's a big part of it, but I think having individual program specific goals, I don't necessarily agree with.
So when referring to the initial version, we had listed out, just so that everyone's on the same page, what we would include or refer to in this, under energy programs. So there were some things that, so certainly the department has been, reporting and tracking energy efficiency incentives, participation in stents, right? We've been tracking some data with regards to our solar installs, things like that. And customers, making use of our solar incentive dollars. Some things that were added were, for example, how many people have been using financing through our bank, and leveraging that program. So we kind of we just wanted to make sure that that we were all on the same page in terms of what should be kind of included in the energy programs that should be considered here. I think, when I read 1A, there's no doubt in my mind that we should be developing, new marketing and promotional materials. But I feel like what's missing out of this is a goal to, reach more customers with those materials and mechanisms for doing so. So that would be what I would be interested in discussing and potentially adding to this. And I'm looking for ideas from folks on what would be a reasonable step in 2022. I feel like there's a lot of folks that just still don't know about these programs, and I've run into it a lot. And so I'm looking for kind of creative ideas for how we can get the word out. I know we've been using, bill inserts, and I know when customers walk into WMGLD, we talk to them. And I know that when folks show up at the farmers market, we talk to them. I'm just wondering what other mechanisms or areas would be reasonable to reach customers where we can expand that that awareness.
So I guess I'll turn back to some stuff that that Phil mentioned a couple of months ago, which was there's different classifications of people as well. And we can put it on the front page of the paper and every farmer's market, and we can go door to door and handing stuff out. People that care about it are going to acknowledge it, and people that don't care about it are not going to acknowledge it. And I really struggle with how I'm going to measure success in that specific goal. You know, I think there's stuff on our website, which we've dramatically improved. We're doing bill inserts. We have advertisements and we can, like I said, what I think the goal is that we want to continually develop, new mechanisms to put it out there, but to measure a level of success based on whether it registers with people or not. I don't know how I would measure that successfully. I don't know how I make this goal necessarily.
Yeah, that could be tough, Pete. I mean, even if you do like a customer survey, you're still not going to get probably the true results because each customer could be different from the other, right? Some could care more, some could care less. So I totally agree with that. One thing that I was thinking about is similar to 2A, where we're going to be holding 2 topic-specific forums annually. Like, could we do something similar where we do 2 forums to educate people on all the offerings that we have as a department?
Well, I think we were going to do, one of those was potentially an update on those as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 1A is kind of born out of, and I anecdotally see it, and and it's where our customers just are not aware of the good work and programs that we have available to it. Case in point, I spoke with a customer, long-term resident here, fairly familiar with gas and light, and their kind of commentary was like, yeah, the gas and light has piss poor rebates. Like, they're going to give me $25 for a new refrigerator. And then when I went on to and they compare us constantly to Mass Save, and when I said we now offer incentives for weatherization, insulation, air sealing, heat pumps, solar, and they were kind of blown away that all of that is now offered. They were still under the old paradigm of there was a few incentives and rebates for appliances. So that's where I think that the 1A is born out of, in terms of just marketing the programs that we have, that we've all worked very hard on putting in place. And in terms of measuring how the participation in the outreach, I don't know, to your point, Pete, like how do we measure that? And that's not necessarily, if you reach someone or don't reach someone, I don't know if that's a measure of success or not success for you in the utility. But I'd like to see the develop the marketing to get that out, and that may be bringing in a third party to do this, that is an expert in marketing. You guys are, you do a fantastic job, but at the end of the day, you're a utility and not necessarily have all of the marketing skill sets that are out there. So I don't know if that's something that we look at and put into the budget, is some sort of marketing assistance by someone who is an expert at that.
What I would add to that, Tom, would be, I don't know if it would make sense to bring a marketing expert firm in there, but without doing an evaluation on how the current marketing is performing, right? Because there could be areas where we're doing okay, there could be areas where we might need improvement. So just throwing it out there, maybe another goal could be a survey on people that are visiting the website, and as far as like how useful the information on the website is. Once that is completed, then in my mind, we can look into like a marketing firm to help us out improving our marketing, whether it's a website design or additional information or formatting of that information in a different way that is more consumable by the day-to-day customer.
No,
Pete, I would like to hear, Pete, I don't know what you think, but I think that could be, like, it doesn't necessarily tie you to the customer itself as far as the number of customers that could be responding to the survey, but at least we hear some feedback on the existing marketing that is out there.
So we did a customer survey, probably, it was pre-COVID, probably 18, Mark, or 17.
Yeah, something like it was.
So
Yeah.
it wouldn't be out of the question to revisit that survey. It's been 3 or 4 years later. I mean, we could develop the survey. It's a process. I think Jen and Jack were around when we did the last one, and it's an involved process, but we could start to develop that this year, develop a customer survey this year. We used Blue Cell, I think, were they not Blue Cell, Great Blue.
Great Blue.
Great Blue, and they did an excellent job. And so we could engage them about, so there's one thing about time of year to do it. There's, there's a lot of logistics that go into a survey, and we are already in April now, but we could make a goal to develop, at least develop a customer survey and engage Great Blue again on cost and timing, and engage on updating and redoing the customer survey. That's reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, it's a struggle, and sometimes I scratch my head at some of the feedback was, in terms of, well, I'd asked that particular person, I was like, did you go to the utility webpage to check out the EE program? And they were like, no. I'm like, for me, that would be the first place. Like, if I'm looking for something, that would be the first place that I would go for that source of truth. But that isn't necessarily always common sense. And and again, it may be this part of where maybe someone doesn't know what they're looking for. So by like, I think the stuff that we do at the farmers market and the inserts and the different information may be like, oh yeah, I am in the market for XYZ, and the utility is has an offering around that, or because the utility has an offering that causes someone to potentially think about doing that project from an energy efficiency standpoint. Maybe someone is like, well, what is a heat pump? And then, goes exploratory from there.
Yeah, see, that was my concern about changing the A goal too much, because there's definitely getting the information out there, then it's getting it to people that care about it or don't. And there is a high percentage of people that care about making sure that the light goes on when I flip my switch when I get home, and that my bill doesn't knock me over. And that's really all they care about from the utility. And no matter how much marketing, no matter how much hand-holding, they're really not going to re-engage in any different way. And I don't think it's fair to make it our responsibility to change that category of people. I
agree as well, but here, what we're doing here, this is a process to evaluate the general manager. And if you look at what is listed here, we're already doing these things, continually developing new market material, provide cost, hold topic-specific forums, educate the customer. So I'm looking at the evaluation, and I think we're doing a good job at doing these things, the general manager and his staff, because they're not being received by the public in general. Is not a condition that we're putting on the general manager and his staff. We're trying to make it better, but we can't force them into adopting these technologies. And I understand how the average person, until they hire a contractor and get involved, how much education can you really give them? You know, the ones that are highly educated and affluent and know how to go online, have technology, the information is out there. You know,
I
other
agree,
people you
Phil.
talk to at farmers market, I think we're doing a great job of doing those kinds of things.
So I guess I'm confused. Pete, where do you feel that in this version of the form where would be measuring you on the, your outreach to the customer? To Phil's point, like, I don't
know the language that we're talking about was my language. Jen was proposing different language.
Oh, okay. I guess that was where my disconnect was.
Yeah, there was a previous language that essentially asked for information on participation in various programs year over year, so we could see how, for example, 1 year compared to the prior year, in terms of just assessing that within the evaluation.
Okay. So
But that's more on the adaptation of some of the programs, right? Like how people will adapt to the various programs, which it could vary, right? And it's not, in my mind, it's not fair to measure people that are offering the programs on the adoption rate of them.
yeah, no, that's
the other thing that I was thinking about, like, I know we're doing all the inserts. I know we have the website. What about an increase in social media advertising, meaning every so often publish the link to the website through social media, because a lot of people do utilize the social media as a means of communication, as a means of getting information. So not sure who's managing like the Facebook page, or I don't know if there's a Twitter or Instagram page that the department has, but those could be certain things that we look into, like expanding the marketing campaigns, but not necessarily measuring the adoption of the different programs. Similar to like the customer survey, right? More getting feedback on how we're doing with all this marketing campaign, rather than whether people are adapting to all the various programs that we offer.
agreed. I mean, to your point, that's the adoption of a program is the success or not success of the program itself, not necessarily the people that implement and run the program. So Pete, you're okay with the way that this is written from a measurement of the staff?
Yeah, I think getting to what Elton said, I think this covers that, because I think we want to continue. So we want to try doing more Twitter or more Facebook in addition, so that would be covered under develop new marketing and promotional materials for all, we need to keep doing more, but I don't think I want to own a specific number that says, that because Mrs. Smith still doesn't want to understand or look at it because it's really not a high priority to her, that we would get measured on that.
I agree.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Pete, I'll be frank, I did call a few people in other municipals, right? And they're not going down the path of measuring the adoption rate or how many people applied for a rebate or how many people are using any of the programs. It's more on what they're looking into is seeing how much information we're making available to our customers and various means of making that information available.
So there are a couple options I just wanted to put out there for just consideration. One is I really like the idea of the follow-up survey, but I don't necessarily think we need to redo the customer satisfaction survey because that was a really big effort and very comprehensive. And it wasn't too long ago, although I'm not sure when we might repeat it. But I'm wondering if we can just ask some of our participants in these programs like 3 or 4 simple questions after participating. Like, how did you find out about the program? How do you think we can reach customers better with this information? Would you recommend this to a friend? Stuff like that. Once they kind of, as they receive their incentive. Another option would be some people do like a tell a friend or refer a friend programs where you could get like a small kicker for each individual who actually takes some action in a program, right? That you say, hey, that person then identifies you as having referred them. So I always think it's interesting when after people do work at a house, specifically painting and roofing, they put a sign out front. Wondering whether anyone would be receptive to say WMG, like a sign that said WMGLD gave me incentive for some work. Like a general sign that said, I had my house insulated through WMGLD or something. I don't know. I mean, it's open for discussion, but to kind of get that neighborhood or word of mouth going a little bit. And the last one is, I think we do this, but just wondering if there's periodically we could do a presentation before like the town council or something, outlining WMGLD's offerings, because those meetings seem to get more participation from the public than some of the other board meetings in our community.
Jen, would some of those fall under kind of more of the EE program versus the performance goals? I think they're great ideas and things for discussion, but in terms of the granularity of those, would you think that those fall more under the general EE program, and as we're putting those together? I know some of that's part of marketing and would fall under like 1A anyways.
Yeah, I kind of think a lot of those things that you mentioned would fall under 1A, that are continually develop new marketing stuff, and try those different things. I especially like the idea of the post-participant survey. I don't know how many people want an MLD sign in front of their house, but but a lot of the other, again, I think that fits under the category of continually develop new marketing stuff. So.
Yeah, I'm just offering some, so I agree. I'm not sure we have to spell that out, but I'm just kind of offering some thoughts on more specific tools or actions we could take that might lead to, get us to that goal of increasing awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, those are all specific things we could do, but I think the goal itself is kind of, it covers that.
I don't have anything else on, in this section. Were there any other discussion or feedback from you, Pete, on any of the other goals? Anything that you want us to consider, tweak?
Now, again, I was comfortable with the language that's listed here. And then there was one, I forget which one it was, Jen, there was one further down that was, I think Tom had made a suggestion on something.
Oh, the
battery?
municipal.
Oh, yes. And then the update, sorry, to the DPW, broadening it out from DPW to town. Yep.
That's fine.
Okay. Sounds good. It seems like it seems like we're happy and we have some ideas to consider. So that seems good to me.
Elton, Phil, any other?
No, I think I'm good. I think the way the goals and measures are laid out seem good to me.
I'm good.
Jen and Phil, are you two comfortable if we take a vote and accept this, and Pete accept this as is, or do we want to? It's already April, so I want to make sure we get this to Pete and his team in a timely manner.
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable as long as we say with the changes we just, with the one change we identified this evening, but I think that's fine.
All right. Let's, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the general manager's 2022 goals as amended.
I'll second that.
All right. Commissioner Corsi.
Aye.
Commissioner Calais.
Aye.
Commissioner Prifty.
Aye.
Myself, aye. 2022 goals as laid out, passed unanimously. All right. Okay. I think we need to move on to executive meeting to review the 2021 goals, but I think first we'll do in executive session. We'll do the collective bargaining update questions on 2022A, and then we'll move into the performance goals. and then come out to possibly take a vote on 2022A. All right.
I'll move that motion.
Okay. All right. So the motion is to go into executive session for those discussions, and then we'll come out to take a vote. So.
Okay, let me stop the recording.
Let's just get the vote recorded and then we can stop. Commissioner Corsi.
Aye.
Commissioner Clay.
Aye.
Commissioner Prifty.
Aye.
And myself, aye. We're in an executive session. If we could stop the recording.
When do we think we're gonna get the contract done, Pete? By?
Well, it has to be signed by, contracts up July, June 30th, so.
Sometime before that, and then, okay.
All right.
And then there's a specific vote. It's not worth reading the whole thing. We'll just put it in the notes. But there's a specific vote. It was document. It was the second document, basically.
Second document. Oh,
Special project 2015A campus battery actions to be taken on the documents. There's a vote.
Oh, for 2022A?
Yes.
Yes.
So rather than read it all, if you want to just, somebody wants certificate of vote, if you just want to, as written.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what we're referencing right now. I
yeah, which
apologize.
document is that?
So Exhibit B, page 1, special project. So it's the, on my list of the documents, it's the second one. Special project documents.
Is it the Word document?
Huh? I believe it's a Word.
Oh, yep. Yeah, it is the Word document. Okay.
Okay.
Word document.
Halfway down, there's the vote itself. Certificate of vote. So once we take the vote, I'll have to have Elton, I'll fill out the rest of the dates and stuff, and Elton will have to sign it.
Okay. Certificate of vote. Oh, attachment 1.
Oh, there it is. Yep. Do you want me to put it up on the screen?
Yeah, if you have it.
Do we want to read the whole thing, or I mean,
I don't know. We have to read the whole thing if we.
It might be helpful. Let me just see if it's more than one page. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Hold on a second. I'm in the wrong thing.
We'll include it in the minutes.
yeah.
Yeah, Jen, it's 2 full pages.
Yeah, okay. Maybe we don't need to read the whole thing.
I think we make the motion to take the vote as written in attachment 1 to be included in the minutes. To accept, right? So that would
accept the vote as written and approve the participation in the project.
All right. So I will entertain a motion. To accept the certificate of vote for special project 2022A as written in attachment 1 to be entered into the minutes.
I'll move the motion.
We have a second.
Second.
Right. Commissioner Corsi.
Aye.
Commissioner Clay.
Aye.
Commissioner Prifty.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion passes unanimously.
So as an FYI, next month, I've already sent you the documents for 2021A. The documents are very similar to this. Again, that is the offshore wind. It's an energy project. We were able to increase our participation in that one from 5 to 6 megawatts. And there actually may be a small delta of uncommitted that they might, if it stays that way over the next few weeks, there might be a slight increase in our allocation. I think there was 2 megawatts out of the 100 that weren't committed yet. And if one of the participants didn't want it, then they were probably prorated over the rest of us. So there might be a slight, even a slight increase to that.
All right.
Super.
So we'll cover that next month. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks, everyone, and thank you for your positive comments. It's appreciated.
Yeah, definitely apprecited.
Thank
And
you.
thanks for coming in at 10 past 10 because I won the over under.
Oh, no.
What did you go on that?
I had
No.
10:15. We're coming in just on
Yeah, if it
time.
was the over, I really wouldn't be the winner.
That's awesome.
Thank
All
you.
right, everyone. Have a good night.
All right,
Thank
Good night,
you.
everyone.
good night.